Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us on this not so sunny Tuesday morning.
It's fall. Welcome back to school, back to fall basics of planning. We're excited to be here with you today. And fall is typically the time plan sponsors look at costs, they look at plan design. We get closer to Q4 and planning for next year. That's a hard one to believe. How can we be already looking at next year's costs? But that is going to be especially important going into 2021.
Yes, absolutely. And we'll touch on a few things later, but we mainly want to try to help you do more with less, because there's less going around now with the uncertainty of COVID on both group retirement and employee benefits plans. We're always looking for a way to help save our clients money, to make sure they're sustainable in the long run.
I think when we think about where money has been placed this year, and we're not talking just specifically about investments, but also about group benefit plans, and the familiar theme that we're still seeing, the stay at home. So the pandemic brought a stay at home theme to everything, whether it was working from home, education from home, socializing from home, which was very difficult from a quarantine perspective, cost perspective.
Mental health from home.
Mental health from home. We'll touch on that and how that has affected plans of moving forward. So I'm just going to go ahead and tick. We've got a few things. For those of you new joining us today, again, we've been here in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, Regina areas all over across Saskatchewan, this wonderful province we live in, for over 30 years. It's hard to believe. Over 400 years from experience, of course. For those of you who have attended our events, the Jim Pattison Children's Hospital, which is fully operational. That's exciting after so many years of planning and thoughtful planning from the perspective for the people of Saskatchewan. There's our team. You're gonna just go and circle. There's Matt and I in the back.
So this picture was recently in the paper, and as parents do, I got a call from my family. Hey, we found your giant head in the back row. I can't see anything else, just a giant floating head. It's like, oh, thanks, Mom and Dad. Always helpful to knock you down a peg.
But the good thing about that is we stand out in a crowd. So I love that.
We do.
You know what? Because we always pride ourselves of finding ways to stand out. And when we think about what our goal today is for you, as well as moving forward, we do want to keep these series of webinars going. We're here to educate and inform, and that's what we feel differentiates us in the marketplace. We do want to share the knowledge. We do want to help you as a business and organization continue to see success and be successful moving forward. A little bit about culture. Again, why do you have the workplace plans in place? Again, if the reason is not to attract, retain, and grow your team, then maybe reevaluate why you have the plan in place. Matt, do you want to talk about why an employee survey is helpful to maybe look at if you haven't already done so?
An employee survey, judging the mood of your office beyond just the scope of benefits is always a great addition. Our ownership here recently did one, and one thing they highlighted right off the bat that came out of it was how everybody said corporate culture, workplace culture was so important. And part of that is, obviously just, enjoying your coworkers and enjoying what you do, but having that good benefits plan, having a good group retirement plan. And how do you know if your employees are appreciating it? Ask them.
That's an excellent point.
As Chief Cliff always says, if you don't ASK, you don't GET.
It's a very, very good point. Our founder, thank you again, Cliff Wiegers and Deb Wiegers, about instilling that practice. Why do we do what we do? What matters to you as our client? We know that every one of you who have tuned in today have different challenges in your workplace, and that has been a huge one with the stay at home mantra. We're not connecting as often. Tones may be misinterpreted in an email. The connectivity between colleagues may not necessarily be there to the same extent. So corporate culture is super important, as is your workplace plans, which we're going to get into. For those of you, as we mentioned, that haven't looked at doing a survey, reach out. This might be a great time to tap into what matters to your team. Has your team changed? Has the dynamics changed in what they value from a benefits perspective, health and dental, as well as the growing benefit of the retirement savings plan?
And more so now, especially with, like Colton mentioned in the chat, with everybody scattered. There's people from our office that we haven't seen in months.
It's so true. You know, Matt and I joke, we work across the hall from each other and we've been connected throughout. We're both in forward-facing roles. And absolutely, there are others we just have in a way lost touch with. And this is where I think it's so important to look again, reevaluate your corporate culture going into 2021, as well as the viability and sustainability of your plans, because it could be that what your team now values has changed for sure. Now, when we think about, I'm going to go into the group retirement savings piece. Colton, I'm just going to comment. Colton has left us a comment here. Culture is so important, even more with everyone so scattered. Colton. Okay, Colton is right next door to me. Again, just across and over from Matt. I haven't seen you in a long time, so thank you for that comment. I know you miss me. I miss you. Social committee has been huge to keep us together. That's very true. We have some very key people in our office who work very tirelessly to try to find ways to bind us when we have people, again, at the be at home theme. So we want to thank you for that. If you don't have a social committee, that may be another way to enhance your existing plan. It doesn't cost a lot of money to look at that. Mike Cars from Blue Cross. Hello, Mike Cars. Thank you for joining us today. We have used the Teams platform at Saskatchewan Blue Cross to interact with colleagues and have meaningful conversations to benefit our clients. Yes, that is a fantastic approach to use, whether it's in a meeting format. We are using the Workplace, which I believe is rolled out from Facebook. And of course the Zoom. Okay, so for those of you that do use Teams platform, I've heard great things about it. I know the schools use it. And again, try to look for ways, unique ways, creative ways to create connectivity in the workforce. So in keeping with our theme of how to make that dollar stretch further. This is a challenging year overall, not just in the group benefits space, but also in the savings plan space. And what we're seeing definitely from the rollout of what COVID meant to North America, you know, and we think back to March and everything slid down. We had that immediate impact of fear instilled in the markets. We received calls from the group retirement savings side, you know, what's happening with my portfolio, where are things going? And again, thank you to the team here at Wiegers for taking things in stride. We've been through this before from a market perspective, from a reactionary perspective. We know emotions when there's unknown variables at play. People can react in ways that they would normally in a bull market, in a strong market. So we've had a bit of a challenging recovery after the bounce. However, if you have been invested, think of your dollar, that hard-earned dollar, and your employer's dollar going into that workplace savings plan. How best was it utilized? Did you buy on sale during those challenging months? And the answer is yes, you did. Further, if you were invested in a balanced asset allocation fund, so when we think of asset allocation, what does that mean? You are allocated among different asset classes. You could be in consumer staples like Danone yogurt and Saputo for dairy. You could be allocated in areas like the industrials. Many portfolio managers underweighted energy because, again, people were at home. Remember gas prices back in April and May, record lows.
Oh, yeah.
We saw the price of oil dip far below. They couldn't get rid of it, so it was selling at a loss,
Yeah.
a huge loss in the negative. Now where we are coming into Q4, again, we're seeing that bounce. We're seeing now rates not going anywhere. So what does that mean? There's a lot of challenge in where people are spending money. Canadians are not spending money. Okay, they've been at home.
You mean your bank statement isn't grocery store, liquor store?
Yeah,
Grocery store.
They are staying home and allocating funds to home improvements, workplace spaces from home, the consumer staples, again, the grocery store items that we all need, and other sectors such as consumer discretionary. Okay, so eating out and the things that are considered of luxury have fallen into a lost position, as is energy. We know the challenges that transportation and our hospitality is going to face for many years to come. Again, when there's considerable worry, then there is a ban on spending. For the Canadian consumer, this is especially prevalent. We, again, don't see rates going anywhere. We also see an easing off of those who were involved in the mortgage payment deferral program that came out when COVID was first released. When you don't make a mortgage payment for 6 months, you forget maybe how to make one. There is definitely going to be that immediate strain to the cash flow, but also for those who maybe have not recouped that second job into the household, or they themselves are still laid off. What may be seen in the coming months is surplus inventory of houses and condos that need to be sold as a result of the mortgage deferral program coming to a close. People coming to the realization, whoa, I've got to make that mortgage payment again. It is a shelter cost. It is
Right.
The majority of your household income. So that is a factor going in. That's why we're not going to see rates going anywhere from where they are. In fact, we're probably going to see them reduced further in an effort to stimulate the economy. Again, we have the U.S. Really heating up for that fall presidential election. We have both candidates not wanting to let anyone have the upper hand. We have delayed stimulus in the United States, but again, that could be a bit of a election tactic as well.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Not political at all.
Interestingly enough, in Canada, Matt, we have the same situation whereby we have bank CEOs saying, look, you need to slow down with the stimulus in Canada, and they don't want to see rates going down any further. Now, that could come from a true standpoint that they do care about the Canadian consumer, but I'm going to go further to say lowered interest rates do not help banks and insurance institutions. In fact, it does hurt them considerably, as we know.
It even affects the employee benefits plans. When you are with an insurance company, you build up reserves, right, for disability claims, health and dental claims that have been, you've had them, but you haven't submitted them, so that you always have reserves. And those pools of money live and die on interest rates.
That is fascinating.
Right,
so Matt, do you see then further strain on long-term disability as a result of the low interest rates?
That would be the one especially, because typically, depending on your company size, your long-term disability is pooled with an insurance company's, broader book of business. And if they're not making the returns or the gains on that pool of money, then that cost has to be passed down to someone.
Okay, that's fascinating. So do watch that. Do watch where interest rates are going. Again, we don't seem to be a very sideways market. Sideways markets, Canadian, US, internationally, as well as in the interest rates. For those of you who do have asset allocation or active, what are called active managed funds in your portfolio, you wouldn't have noticed a lot of the ups and downs and a lot of the sideways market activity that we're seeing. If you have concerns about your workplace savings plan, maybe it's still at the bank. Maybe it's a collection of individually held RSPs and you know that your company money is going into these plans, and after that you're not sure what's happening. Please reach out to us because we can give you that second opinion that you as well as your employee needs. We think about, our founder, again, Cliff, this is something you and I have talked about often, and we think about the rooms in your mind that get occupied. We have COVID, we have our personal mental stressors every day, and you're going to talk a little bit about that and the impact of that on benefits plans. People don't have the room in their minds to look at their investments, to gauge where markets are going. Those are best left to portfolio managers who are managing billions of dollars. Let us help you with that. This is a prime example of imagery and distractions and clutter that is taking up space in your mind, in the markets, how markets react to news, daily news, fake news, news that's forgotten yesterday and it's back tomorrow, or it happened last week and we can't recall it. When we think about the US market and investing there, again, we're seeing growth specifically in the US sector because of the large value-based companies that are still continuing to make money, that haven't been necessarily moved. I mean, think of Johnson & Johnson, think of Colgate-Palmolive, think of Procter & Gamble, as well as the efficacy of pharmaceutical companies, those that are doing steroid production for managing COVID. There's been some advancements there. Of course, the race for a vaccine is another. We're not going to see a vaccine by November 1st. I really highly doubt we'll see one even this year. Perhaps it could happen. But again, gearing up to the US election, again, we're seeing some interesting news coming out of that, and that will send markets in a sideways motion coming up to that. Very range-bound dollar. The Canadian dollar really hasn't budged a lot from last year. The previous year, we're seeing very, very stable dollar there. And moving into 2021, this is one area we are not going to see a difference. Debt levels, again, saving for retirement has not been top of mind. In fact, now because Canadians have had to tap into their savings plans or tax-free savings accounts, accelerated debt repayment is definitely going to be the number one thing. For those of you that are offering your employees workplace savings plans, I cannot thank you enough for taking that why to another level, because Canadians aren't saving on their own. We will not forget this image for the rest of our lives. It is it's a very, very powerful thing. Yeah. Matt, let's talk about renewals. Let's talk about saving money for the consumer as well as for the plan sponsor on renewals.
Yeah, and it kind of, thanks, Renee, one of our sort of themes is trying to do more with less, because Absolutely. We're in the market of less. COVID uncertainty, like you had mentioned, the markets, everyone is afraid to spend money because it's like, well, they don't know if they'll have their job, keep their pension, you name it. So I kind of want to start with the basics. Back to school, how does a renewal work? So there's really two types of benefits on a renewal. There's your pooled piece, which is life insurance, disability, that kind of stuff. And those are based on your demographics. So age, sex, and what you do. So you hire a bunch of 18-year-olds, you will go crazy, but you will have cheap benefits.
Very affordable plan.
Yeah, exactly. Conversely, you hire a bunch of people in their later 50s, then your rates are going to go up, right? That's pretty straightforward.
So that's a very interesting point. When we think about plan design, is the demographic changing whereby the traditional office environment valued a specific area of the benefits plan, whereas now millennials, you've got this intergenerational demographic.
Exactly, yeah, and we have a relatively young office here, and millennials in general view things like flexibility, the Netflix problem, ease of access, on demand, don't want to have to wait, that kind of stuff. So kind of going back to what we had talked about at the beginning, employee surveys. Sure, maybe when you started out, your traditional plan of health, dental, disability, where you've filled the forms and everything was great, and I'm sure your employees valued it. But now maybe you have a much younger workforce. It could be time to poll them. I know in our office, when Colton joined us a few years ago, dramatic technological changes started happening as he kind of poked the hornet's nest a little bit and forced us to stop doing what we're doing and look at things in a different perspective. And that's exactly the same thing in benefits. You really never know what your staff wants until you ask. And one way to do that is a health spending account, and I'll touch on that in a little bit. But
excellent.
So with your traditional health and dental model for pricing, like I had mentioned with the pooled piece, it's dollars in, dollars out, and administration costs. That's pretty much it. There's really not a lot more to it. In benefits, there really aren't any sales. You get what you pay for. If you get something at a discounted rate, you'll be having to pay that back later. Insurance companies aren't typically out for the great goodness of the community, although I know we have Michael from Blue Cross, and they are not for profit. So they're one of the ones that's a little different in that. But most insurance companies are for-profit entities like your average business out there. So they still need to make money on that. So one thing that you can do, one thing you and your employees can do to help contain costs without you having to make any sweeping plan design changes is talk to your staff about dispensing fees. So you can see this chart that we have on there. So a dispensing fee is the fee that your pharmacy charges to physically put the prescription together, because your pharmacists know more about prescriptions than doctors do very often. So they put the pills together, they tell you, take it with dinner, blah, 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 that kind of stuff. So they charge a fee for that. In Saskatchewan, we're actually quite lucky with our dispensing fees. In some provinces, we've seen the fee be up to 10% of the total drug claim. So our healthcare costs for employee benefits are actually pretty good here in Saskatchewan. So to my point of how your staff can have a direct impact on your plan, take a look at that chart. So and these aren't, you're not always going to have this dispensing fee charge, but this is an average. So if your whole staff got their prescriptions at Costco, and I know they're kind of out of the way, but everybody goes to Costco, and you don't need a Costco membership to go to the pharmacy. You can just say at the door, you're going to the pharmacy, and they let you right in. But if your whole staff went to Costco versus everybody going to, Safeway or Sobeys or London Drugs, you can see there's substantially fewer claims that would go through the plan. It's actually at, it's gone so far that one insurance company that we work with actually gives you 90% reimbursement instead of 80% if that employee goes to Costco. Wow. That's the difference in dispensing fees.
Dispensing fees, 30, 60, 90-day supply. Is there a movement afoot to see changes in how you can get your medications?
Every carrier is different, but especially right now with COVID, people are getting them in bigger and bigger supplies. They're trying to get as many as they possibly can because, again, the uncertainty, they don't know if they're going to have a job, right? So might as well get your pills now while at least there's a co-insurance and your employer is contributing a portion. And speaking of that, okay, the number one way to save money on an employee benefits plan is plan design changes. Now you can see this chart here. This is from a recent newsletter from one of our suppliers. I thought it was quite telling. there's been dramatic drug increases over the years, yet plan designs have stayed very similar. You can still see on there that over 50% or around 50% still have no dispensing fee maximum, or 30% have no annual drug maximum.
Is it because plan sponsors are just fearful to make any level of wide sweeping changes on their plans? Do you feel that?
A little bit, and especially right now, nobody wants to make any changes on anything.
Status
Inertia is very, very, very high.
Okay.
But that's kind of how it was always done. I mean, we have some clients that we've had for 20 plus years that we can go back and look at their plan design then versus their plan design now, and their cost share then versus their cost share now.
Right.
And it's very, very different landscape.
Okay.
I mean, there's so many different ways that you can, not restrict, but limit your plan design to help protect you. The most important part is that long-term. I mean, we can save you money now with plan design changes. That is very simple. The most important part is that long-term protection. To give you an idea, and this is an actual couple of examples that I've had in the last 6 months. I had a few clients that had plans that were 100% to unlimited prescriptions. As you can see on that chart, they would fall under those categories. And each of them have had claims go through, paid at 100%, that were in the $150,000 range.
Wow.
And in one of them, they literally shut their plan off. They terminated their whole plan because they couldn't handle the increase. And the other one got rid of all of their prescriptions for all their employees.
So again, we've talked about this in previous webinars, the price of compassion, like you say, can sink a plan. And again, we're seeing there's that dispensing fee maximum, the potential impact to a plan.
Can be huge. And Jennifer, thank you from
Hello,
Southwest
Jennifer.
Mechanical. So what would a fair drug max be to set? So if I'm setting up a plan for a brand new business that has never had a plan before, the highest I will typically go is $2,500 per person per year. Especially on what we call a virgin firm. It's their first kick at the can, so we don't know where their claiming activity is, right? Once we've had them for a couple of years, then say, okay, you're stable, you have lots of pretty much the same employees, you don't have a lot of turnover. Yeah, if you want, we can up that or up the co-insurance to 90% or that kind of thing. Yeah. Unfortunately, in group, in order to have savings, it's the things that are used the most. So if your group is 80% of your total claims are prescription drugs, the only way you're going to really get some savings is putting some restrictions on those prescriptions.
Okay. Okay. Excellent.
One of my favorite ways for cost containment is a health spending account. So the greatest part about them is the cost.
You know your cost.
You do. You know exactly your damage going in. It's the cost of the claim plus a 10% admin fee. You can put, $500 per employee per year. Your max damage is $550 times your total number of employees. That part's wonderful. Why employees love them is that they're incredibly flexible. So you could spend it all on glasses, because I know you're wearing your glasses today, and I could spend it all on massages.
Okay.
And Danielle could spend it all on chiropractor. Like you get that ultimate flexibility. Okay. Employers love it because when we go to meet at renewal time, they already know what the damage is. There's no, because your typical renewal setup is kind of like a Sask Energy or Sask Power equalized payment. You pay the same amount every month, and then at the end of the year they reconcile, and you either pay more or pay less, right? So this is an alternative that your max damage, essentially what's while you're going.
For those that don't utilize the plan, then that's immediate plan savings.
Exactly.
For the employer.
Yeah.
Interesting. And as we see it increase then in a younger demographic, their value.
Yeah.
Health spending plans.
Exactly. And thanks for chiming in here, Michael. The pricing for 5,000 with prescriptions with Blue Cross is the same as unlimited. So that shows the price for the monthly fee you're going to pay, but you get that protection of not having the ability for that $100,000 drug claim to go through or that kind of thing. So
excellent.
Thank you. And spending accounts, they can be customized. I have one that they have one client that they have a large immigrant workforce that their wellness spending account is set up to cover fitness, education, nice. And driving training. because they have a large immigrant workforce. So that was the things that were important to their employees to help bring additional value. So we're coming up on 30 minutes here. So
how time flies in
does.
our webinars. We need to do more of these, and we thank you for those of you who have been very instrumental in encouraging us to do them. Thank you so much for that. Do we have any other questions?
Yeah, feel free to turn your camera on and ask if you want to.
Excellent, Jennifer. Our staff like it, and the app is slick. So that's excellent to hear that you're very engaged with your workforce. You know what they like, where they tend to steer. So that's excellent. We'd like to hear that for sure.
As someone who uses a health spending account here as an employee, it's awesome.
Yeah, the flexibility can't be understated. We know that from a taxation perspective, from Canada Revenue Agency, very clear-cut rules surrounding wellness accounts and health spending. So it's excellent there. Listen, we're going to be available here after the webcast. It's also being recorded right now. We want to thank you again for supporting what we do. For those of you that work very closely with us, and we thank you for that, please consider leaving a Google review if you haven't. But further, if you're speaking to a business colleague and in the course of your conversation, they're not receiving the type of bare bones, raw advice that we're able to provide you and that you value, please refer them to us. We love nothing more than to have a second look at plan design and cost containment for prospects that really may not know that there can be better and is better out there. And this is what we do. We're passionate about it. Thank you so much for aligning with Wiegers Financial and Benefits. Jennifer absolutely will send you the recording. She puts her, I chimed in late. That's okay. You're a business owner. Business has to keep going. We want you to be successful, and we want you to be sustainable, all of you moving forward.
Okay. Thanks very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a good rest of your week.